Imagine if knowledge and written works are a buffet, where people reading are going down a table of assorted words placed on platters, each with unique ideas and flavors. Arguably, a library is an all-you-can-read buffet. The chef or writer would think their work is good, or else why cook or publish it? And of course, both chefs and writers produce slop sometimes. It's inevitable to fail at some point in the act of pursuing anything in a long enough timeline. However, forcing your food into other people's mouths would be unethical and rather immoral, depending on your relationship. If you did this for your own baby that has to grow up and learn of the world, no one would bat an eye as long as you're relatively gentle. I pose to you that the parallels between food and writing are similar. As such, people like reading and interpreting works at their own pace with their own opinions. They don't like being forced opinions down their throat unless they blindly trust the source for being a good chef or an expert, even if it's Taco Bell, which I think objectively has degraded over the years, my opinion. Some people look for new thought leaders to join a hive mind to not have to critically think and be informed of what to think and their own opinions. This is natural crowd dynamics, and it occurs in every tribe and political spectrum, so it's not really one-sided. Point is, generally speaking, people who are critical thinkers would rather be eased into information with jokes or insights and options than be told or forced blatant facts. Critical thinkers like wrestling with ideas and want to critically think. Most readers want food with flavor and appeal. A nice book cover, a nice thumbnail video to click, a unique presentation for a luxury experience of information or knowledge that's contained here within. If I serve you a steak on a flimsy paper plate with plastic utensils, it would be akin to giving you a rough draft of writing that hasn't been edited or reviewed. It's raw and the work speaks for itself. People want to either confirm their biases or critique opposing opinions. Rarely do they feel reluctant and willing to let go of their current beliefs or values because we humans tend to get very attached to our precious things even though those things are immaterial ideologies. It's the egoic possession within us. After which, people would rather argue about semantics or specifics by attacking bold claims or other people's interpretations of the works in the comments section. I mean, how many people out there are arguing about fast food? A lot, actually. So there's this sort of fandom and anti-fandom for fame and infamy towards any food or written works. It has its own duality and ecosystem, critiquing the flavor of the context. Arguably, if you read anything about philosophy reinterpretations, I mean, why would you? I don't. It's a bunch of people with degrees arguing made-up words while having made-up definitions, miscommunicating over what some dead person might have said, cross-referenced with what some other dead person also might have said. And this is philosophy manifests. It's a metaphysical form akin to an online forum where people post their works and then post their works in the comments to argue for or against the works while cross-posting other people's works. Just like the annals of time, people die and leave chat, and then their works are finalized and interpreted as if their work transcended the person. In a way, it did, since their work actually outlived them. As such, I'm not saying that we shouldn't cross-reference or refer to other people's works, and hey, I do that. We all pretty much do that. No man is an island upon themselves, but we also have to say something original or unique and add to the critique, and not a block of text quoting a dead guy, then cross-referencing their work with more blocks of quotes, and then pretending that the reader can come to the same exact conclusion that you did. Even if what you're saying is not completely unique, you still have a chance to add something authentically necessary to the conversation. Even if it turns out to be wrong later, that's just how things go. As a side tangent, you might see that I have a great disdain for philosophers in this context. I love philosophy, but I qualm and quibble over the quips of philosophers. So, to the point of this article was to drive home the idea that as a writer, you're making your work as if it's a meal. To draw a comparison between writing and cooking, as they say, let 'em cook, right? An essay or story has courses. For simplicity, a beginning, middle, and end could be viewed akin to a daily breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or even a 3-course meal with the appetizer, main dish, and dessert. This could also relate to a trilogy in a book. A typical novel, saga, or multi-work series might even have 7 or more parts or chapters to it. As such, you could make it a fancy 7-course or 10-course meal. The aim of a meal is to fill a stomach, but it can also be tasty and nutritious and visually appealing. The aim of a writing is to tell a story, but it can also be informative and enticing and enjoyable. The aftertaste is the cathartic release of emotions or reflections that transcends the work itself. Like watching a movie, reading, or hearing a story that makes you think deeply about it long after the story ends. Something that causes you to self-reflect deeply about your own life. Writing in comedy or romance is like adding in spices. Writing in a historical version of history in dry language is bland as plain oatmeal, a necessary staple in life but not so fun. There's a certain synergy that can combine a lot of flavors to make something unique, something both informative and appealing, something tasty and filling. Some people eat to lose weight, some people eat to gain weight, some people eat to just eat, while some people eat just because they're bored. Likewise, some people read to gain something, others read to read, while some enjoy reading copy pasta slop in novels or manga like a guilty pleasure of junk food to subside their boredom. Like a sugar-filled cake, some things are enjoyable and sweet but rot your teeth as much as the content may rot your brain. I don't know about you, but to me, pizza is very visually appealing and tasty, but I always feel bad eating it afterwards. I think it's the bleached white flour and the American diet and grease, but I'm not sure per se. As such, some things, food and writing, can leave a bad feeling or long after the story ends. A sort of regret like watching Game of Thrones to have the last season end in the way that it did, to make everyone not talk about Game of Thrones. Like that. I mean, if the meal was spiked with poison or laxatives, I'm sure you wouldn't trust the chef. That's also if you survive. As such, a writer has some leeway to write, but the writer or director isn't immune to the most egregious offenses that can bury their story or storytelling. Ideally, a chef would taste their own food, maybe by making a copy of it, and a writer ought to read their own writing to review and reflect on it. If the chef or writer wouldn't want to taste or read their own work, then they're not putting something genuine in the world. It's rather soulless. Ultimately, you can't cook for everyone and be the best for everyone's flavor palette, so you have to define the audience, either write or cook for yourself or for a target ideal archetype or demographic. Ideally, you'd target both, yourself and the archetype that you're in. So the target demographic is also including yourself, and you are in the target demographic that you're targeting, if that makes sense. In my reflection, I like connecting dots, so I write more for informational content for informational readers. I don't write the necessarily objective truth, but rather conjectures that are neither right or wrong in most cases. My notes are turned into a sort of story or dialogue that I revisit from time to time to address statements or ideas that I build upon and work upon. Or I do this to draw inspiration from. It's almost like each of my writing works or written works are like a bucket of water in my well that I'm filling and refilling. My main focus is on words and logotherapy, which also evolves into writing and dissecting language as well as customs and traditions that evolve from language. Essentially, I'm writing about everything because it's all connected, but perhaps it'd be a better to niche down? Maybe. I think I'm being authentic and true to myself when my writings and scrawlings are mad and wide and range in scope, because they don't really just hit one thing when I say words mean things. I sprinkle a few jokes, a few references, some poetry, some shadow work within my writings, and some esoteric and some religious and spiritual jazz. It's a unique blend, and I'm refining it to all deliver the same point of the entire piece of journey that I'm trying to go on is that words mean things. Epilogue. I paint for you a picture with words, comparing two ideas of writing and cooking using words as the bridge of communication. In this, I hope you can be a better writer and cook by taking account the meal that you're making and the audience that you're making it for. Hopefully this also draws parallels so that if you're also a chef and wants to write their own book, or a writer that cooks, then you can draw even more connections between these two ways, or Daos. The Tao of writing and the Tao of cooking. Personally, I think alchemy would be a better connection for cooking, or chemistry, really. But that's like a side note. Even if you're not a writer, your writing is a reflection of your thoughts, and thus you can apply the lessons you may find here to your own thought process. I personally think writing is a good idea to put thoughts down and reflect on those thoughts and revise them. But you are free to write or not write. I, as the author of this piece, don't have the authority over your authorship of your life. Turns out you do. I hope my random writings and scrawlings and essays isn't necessarily junk food to you, but if it is, that I'm not mad. Life is full of cosmic horrors and cosmic joys, so sometimes it's preferred to consume a tried and trusted, bland and safe comforting piece to weather out the storm. Like the oatmeal. It is what it is after all. I'm just here to say that words mean things. Hey, so this is the end of the video, but I want to throw this. This is the initial recording of this video, and I just want you to enjoy how silly it sounds. Consider this like the bloopers, because like I was just reading something I wrote, and it sounds awful, but like I think it's worth sharing, just so you can see how like as you're sort of making something, it sort of takes shape, and then you have to like reshoot or redo certain things or rewrite certain things. And reading is like one of those things, or sorry, writing is like one of those things where you write something down and then you read it and then you reflect on it and then you rewrite it. Creating video content or audio content is similar in the sense where you like view what you're making and then you're like, wow, what was I doing here? So enjoy this little initial snippet of me messing up or just me poorly reading my own works. It's just so funny. Imagine if knowledge in written works are a buffet, where people reading are going down a table of assorted words placed on platters, each with unique ideas and flavors. Arguably, a library is an all-you-can-read buffet. The chef or writer would think their work is good, or else why cook or publish it? And of course, both chefs and writers produce slop sometimes. It's inevitable to fail at some point in the act of pursuing anything in a long enough timeline.